Good evening, ladies and gentlemen and candidates. I am Richard Dinges. I am the Executive Director of the Weed Chamber of Commerce, and on behalf of our board, we would like to welcome you to Candidates Night. I'd also like to thank SMC for being here. We're going to be live streaming this, so you can catch it on their website. It should be on the Weed Chamber website, and it also, I believe, is on the city website. So with that being said, I would like to introduce our moderator, Dr. Stephen Schoonmaker, who is the president of the College of the Siskiyous. Doctor?
Richard, thank you, and a good evening to all of our candidates, and I want to thank those who are in attendance either here in person, appropriately physically distanced, or watching us via streaming and from the Siskiyou Media Council. So it is, as I mentioned, I'm Dr. Stephen Schoonmaker, president of College of the Siskiyous, and it is my honor to be the moderator for the this evening's forum. So just a few of the rules as I go through them, and then we will begin. So in order to comply with health and safety protocols in response to COVID-19, all in attendance are required to wear protective face coverings, masks, and maintain physical distancing. And then just so everyone who's watching is aware, upon entry, the temperature of every person here was taken. Unmasking is only permitted while speaking into the microphone to answer questions from the moderator or for me when I am speaking. Candidates will not comment on other candidates' responses or interrupt while a candidate is speaking. This is a reminder, this is not a debate, this is a forum, an opportunity for us to hear candidates' thoughts. Candidates will have no more than 2 minutes to answer each question. I did some math today. I have 15 questions in front of me. If all of you took 2 minutes and answered each of them, we would not get through very many questions. So please try to keep your answers to the questions that are asked. There is to be no candidate literature or paraphernalia displayed or distributed in the meeting room. However, after the forum, candidate literature may be placed on the tables outside the meeting room. This is a forum that is sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce. As such, the Chamber reserves the right to have the final say on these rules, and they did so. So with that, I am going to ask each of the candidates, again, no more than 2 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry. Also, I forgot one of the most important rules. There is a timekeeper to monitor these events, and that is Richard. So as a speaker gets close to the end of their time, when there's 30 seconds left, Richard will raise a yellow card. When your time is up, then it will go to red, see pink, but no red, right? So, and then we will ask the candidates to relinquish the floor. So with that, I'm going to give all of the candidates a couple of minutes to introduce yourselves to those of us in attendance. And I am going to start straight ahead from me with Sue Tavalero.
All the time. My name is Susan Tavalero, and I've lived in Weed for 27 years, and I have a husband and 2 children. My son still lives here in Weed, and my daughter is in Medford. I've served on the city council so far for 4 years, and I would be thrilled to do another 4 years.
Sue, thank you. Next up, I'm going to ask Brian Palmer to introduce yourself.
I'm Brian Palmer. I've lived in Weed probably closer to 40. Weed in Mount Shasta. I own Black Butte Towing. I have 2 daughters. One's in Seattle with Microsoft. The other one's a vet in Anderson or Vet Tech. And I would like to be on the city council to do it for a change what the people want.
Brian, thank you very much. Next up, Mark Mazzoni.
Hi, Mark Mazzoni. I'm a native of Weed. I've been here, well, now 61 years. I have a wife named Mary and 2 daughters. One lives in Southern Cal, the other is in Georgia. I've been active in my community, and I would like to be part of the city council and work with the city and departments.
Okay, Mark, thank you very much. Next up, Ron Stock.
Thank you. I appreciate being invited to the forum. I think the community knows me and the 8 years that I served as the city manager for the city of Weed. This opportunity on the city council gives me the opportunity to give something back to the community. I asked if I could have the ability to read a statement that I gave to the newspaper yesterday, and I was assured by the director that he would allow me to read it. On Saturday, I received a call from the chief of police, Jason Mayberry, regarding an anonymous flyer mailed to city voters containing allegations of criminal conviction, among other items. Chief Mayberry stated that he personally knew that the allegations were false and wanted to bring the mailer to my attention so that I could deal with it appropriately. The mailer is nothing more than an effort to smear my good name with falsehoods and mischaracterizations, and I will not stand for it. I contacted the California Fair Political Practices Commission and was advised to file a complaint with the city attorney. I have done so and will continue to pursue an appropriate resolution. The residents of Weed deserve better than dirty politicking. If you want the truth, ask the current or the retired chief of police about my character and commitment to running the city with integrity, or ask me directly. An anonymous political hit piece mailed 2 weeks before the election, full of false allegations and innuendo. It raises a question as to what the authors of the mailer are afraid of if I'm elected to the city council. Honesty, balanced budgets, sound government practices, ethics and integrity. We will find out who sent the mailer, and then we'll have the answer to the question. And thank you for allowing me to read that statement.
Okay, Ron, thank you. And then last but not least, Bob Hall.
Thank you. This is working? My name is Bob Hall. I've been on the city council for 12 years. I wasn't planning on running this year. I thought it was time to step down, but due to the coronavirus issues and our funding situation, I found it necessary to continue. I think we're going to be in for some rough times, but I came to Weed in 1967 from McLeod, and went in the Army, came back in 1970. I have my son and daughter both live in Weed. I have 3 of my 4 grandsons live in Weed, and 2 of my great-grandsons live in Weed. So I have something, we have some history here, and we have a ways to go. But I really feel that the time we're going into is going to be very necessary for us to work together. And I don't consider myself a great leader, but what I am is I help people work together. And I set the table for that, and I feel the necessity to ask for another 4 years. Thank you.
Okay, Bob, thank you very much. So, on with questions. The first question I'm going to ask is, and all questions, every candidate will have a chance to respond to. So, question number one, if you are an incumbent, what have you specifically done for the city? If you are a newcomer, what are your top 2 goals? And I'm going to start with Mark, and we'll just go left to, well, my left to my right.
My top 2 goals would be positive growth, making sure that the water rights are intact, solving that problem, and honestly, not to be overwhelmed with the cannabis growth. That's it.
Okay, Mark, thank you. Brian, same question.
Rebuilding downtown Weed so people will go shopping. If people live here, will go buy things in our own town. Our police department, our public works, and our roads. Our roads need a lot of work. We've spent money on the cannabis industry. It should have been spent on our highways. We should, as far as I'm concerned, not deal with marijuana anymore and fix our own city. That's it.
Okay, thank you. Sue?
The 2 things that I have worked on diligently since I've been on the council has been the water issue and the downtown issue. We are in the process of getting our water issue fixed, and we are also in the process of getting our downtown area fixed. Some of these things take time, unfortunately, but as other candidates have said, we all notice the downtown. Nobody likes it, but when a private person owns private property, there's only so much you can do, and we are doing what we can in a slow motion process of trying to get the downtown and the water issues both fixed.
Sue, thank you. Ron?
The 2 issues I'd like to see is, first of all, a more balanced economy with less emphasis on cannabis-related businesses. And second, I'd like to see the city reinvest in infrastructure in the community. Roadways, curb, gutter, sidewalks, underground utilities, and a restoration of the CDBG home improvement loan program that the city had a number of years ago to provide low-cost financing for property owners to improve their homes with an emphasis on energy conservation.
Ron, thank you. And Bob?
As I said, I've been on the council for 12 years, so there's a lot of things that we've done. But I think one of the first thing that we that we solved was the crossing at the Mercantile. For 30 years that I'd been around, 40 years that I'd been in Weed, the crossing was just terrible. I mean, just terrible condition. You couldn't get we couldn't get anything started on it. The word was that it would take 18 months to get a permit to do something on the crossing. It would also be somewhere in the range of $400,000 to do the crossing. And we got a coalition of people together to try to see what we could do. And within 6 months, with people working together, contacting the railroad, in 6 months, it was complete. And it was complete. It cost the city $24,000 that we had for road safety. We already had it in a fund. As far as the downtown area, we initially started that with the lights. We had one light on Main Street at night, one Cobra head light, no street lights. We'd accepted that. And also, I was the mayor through the Bowles Fire and was able to help assist and work with some fantastic people to get us working together. and our rehab speaks for itself. I also we established a library program. The library will be funded forever in Weed, and we also created a senior citizen program that has a meal on Mondays, and we also provide van rides to doctor's appointments and shopping.
Bob, thank you. Okay, the next question, kind of again, just trying to help voters get to know you all better. Have you previously served on a governing board of any type or as a leader in any organization? And if so, please briefly describe the organization, your role, or organizations, because you may have been in several, your role, and the number of years you served in that capacity. And this time, let's start with Brian, and then we'll go through and end with Mark.
Just owned a business, had 7 employees, from 7 to 12. No other government board of anything like that. Just ran my own business, did very well at it. And I'm very financially stable in what I've done. And that's the thing that I want to do with our city. I've seen money spent on stuff that makes no sense to me whatsoever at all. It drives me nuts. The money should have been spent on something a lot better. That's my answer.
Brian, thank you. Sue?
I've been involved with the Weed Recreation and Parks Department since 1998, when my kids were still young. I saw an ad in the paper that said they needed a board member, and I thought that my kids were little and that was something I could become involved with. I sat on the Siskiyous Union High School District Board for 8 years, serving 4 years as the board president. I was on the Bulls Fire Recovery Team. I was involved with Cub Power and Cougar Power while my children were at Weed Elementary and Weed High School. I've been involved with the planning of Carnivale for the past 4 or 5 years. I've been involved with the Weed Fire Department and their hamburger booth at the Carnivale, which is how kind of those two things married together. I've been involved in the Weed Bocce Club, organizing the teams for the last 4 years. And I'm a member of the Weed Rotary Club, and I am past president of Weed Rotary. I'm also very involved with my church and my church youth group of young women.
Right. Sue, thank you very much. Ron?
Well, I served 2 years on the board of directors of the Weed Chamber, 2 years on the Siskiyous County Airport Authority, 4 years on the Steamboat Springs, Colorado School Board, 1 year as president of the Colorado Municipal Attorneys Association, 1 year on the California League of Cities Policy Committee on Housing and Economic Development, 2 years as an adjunct professor in the graduate master's program for management at Florida State University, and 9 years as an adjunct professor in public policy at the University of Phoenix.
Ron, thank you. Bob?
I think I answered some of these already in the last question, but I've been involved for youth sports for the last 45 years. I'm also currently, Saturday nights, I open a gym, open gym here in Weed. I think that as far as the 12 years that I've served on the city council, I look at that as probably the highlight of my career as far as volunteering. It's been many issues. I wish we had the time, or even if I could remember all of them in 12 years. But I've been involved in so many different things, from president of the golf club to serving on the rec board to there's just a lot. But I do believe that the most important contribution I have, like I said before, is help assisting people to work together. And we are in a time where it is just terribly important that we understand that if we're going to get through this, we have to do it together. And we have to be able to work together. There's no sides to this. We're all on the same team. Thank you.
Bob, thank you very much. And Mark?
Well, that's a hard one to follow up on, but I've worked with the youth baseball, t-ball for my kids, all the way up through high school baseball, 2 years as head coach, football. Everything was all volunteer for me. I then was appointed to the rec department, and I did that, I believe, for 3 terms. I ended up leaving, and when I did, it was as a chairperson, and I was involved in this beautiful building being put up. Been involved with the Weed Police Department, a lot of different fundraisers. I'm currently a vice chair with the Planning Commission. I believe that's going on 3 years, 2 or 3. But my main goal that I've worked up to is to be on the city council and actually complete my goal to help this city that I've born and raised in, that I've fought for, I will continue to fight for, and that will be the highlight, other than my wife and my 2 beautiful kids.
Mark, thank you. So the next question kind of gets us focusing from a couple of goals or a couple of things you've done to what do you believe is the single most compelling issue facing the city of Weed? And Sue, we'll start with you.
When I looked at this question, I answered housing, but that's a citywide, a statewide, and a nationwide issue. When I say housing, and I mean houses, not just apartments. We have Mountain View apartments, we have Bowles Creek apartments, but it would be great if we could have some affordable homes that people could purchase, that people could buy. If somebody owns their own home, they're more likely to be invested in the community, and they're more likely to have community pride. So I would say, we've already mentioned the downtown issues, the water issues, but it would be great if we had a lot of these empty lots that we have all over town filled with houses.
Sue, thank you. Ron?
It's fairly easy. It's the acquisition of the city's water rights. The city, in order to grow, must own its water rights. That's the number one issue that this next council has to complete. I'm not going to give you a laundry list of a bunch of issues. I'm giving you the answer to one, which is what you asked.
Thank you, Ron. And yes, I did ask for the most compelling issue, so appreciate that. Bob?
One of the things I didn't mention that I have been with the Water for Weed Citizens since the beginning in 2015, but as far as the single most important issue, I believe it's livable wage jobs. I think it's very easy for many of us that have livable wage jobs to forget that we have a community that is many renters. We have many renters, and we have the lowest rent cost in the county. And this, when I talk about a labor force, first thing I think we need to do is the community has to understand that we're responsible for a labor force. A community is no stronger than the labor force that we have. We have a perfect situation in that we have a college, a junior college right here in our own community with, the COS is reaching out right now with occupational vocations that are livable wage jobs. And the other issue, as far as the jobs we have in Weed, many of the higher paying jobs, people don't live in Weed. So preparing the labor force for this, for the jobs that we have here, I think is very important. But not only that, I think understanding that this labor force not only will benefit the community, but it also sets our young people up for the ordeal they're about ready to go through regarding their jobs. So livable wage jobs to me, is the number one thing if we're going to actually have people where I was when I was a young person, where you had a job at International Paper or Vanderbilt or wherever, and you could afford to purchase a house. You could actually live. And I hope, my hope is that we can provide that for our young people and start bringing people back to our community, wanting to be part of our community, because we are excelling in our labor force, which means our school system is second to none.
Bob, thank you. Mark, same question.
You know, I look at that and I kind of agree with Ron, but how do you answer that for just one? There's several. Mine is the budget. City of Weed has to have a balanced budget. It has to have a full budget, because without that, what can you offer to businesses, to people, developers coming into the city? So I think one of those is a budget. Healthy budget, money in the bank, so we're not reaching, looking, and having furloughs and et cetera. That's it.
Mark, thank you. Brian?
Develop South Weed with a legal and a usable Love's truck stop. I wish it would hurry up and come in. The taxes off it would help City of Weed a lot. I'd like to see a truck wash, things of this sort to go in South Weed. I would not like to see anything that's not federally legal put into Weed, because you can't bank it, you can't finance it. So, no, I believe South Weed should develop. Motels is a great idea. A nice restaurant would be neat. Another one in South Weed, and get more income coming into City Weed. Unless the City Weed has money, we don't do very well. And we need to fix our budget. We spent money on stuff we should not have. That's my answer.
Okay. Brian, thank you.
You bet.
So next I'm going to turn to a question about involving residents in the decision-making process. So the question is, how do you plan to involve residents in the decision-making process in our city? And Ron, you're first up.
You're asking how to involve the public? Did I get the question correct?
Yes, it is involve residents of the city of Weed,
Okay.
the public.
Well, first of all, what I'd tell you is, if you ask the voters for their opinion, and they're kind enough to give it to you, you actually follow what they say. Even if it's not the answer that you were hoping for, wasn't the answer that you wanted. We have done quite a bit in an effort to try to communicate with our citizens. We've had modest efforts, such as acquiring software in order to put our budget online. We've upgraded our web page on 2 occasions. We've tried to do periodic flyers within our utility bills. But we really haven't accomplished what I had hoped we would. The community, the city needs to have a better effort at communication. One of the ways in which they may do that is a newsletter, not a puff piece or a letter from the mayor, but an actual newsletter that tells you what is going on and how they can influence affairs. And some cities have used regular surveys. I think they would be worth an effort here. Thank you.
Ron, thank you. Bob, same question?
A lot of good answers. I think it's evident that this is what we need to do if we're going to survive, is getting people out, getting people, just as five, talking about one subject brings us closer to solutions. But I think the city could make a much better effort to contact or to make contact with the residents, more or less in the vein of understanding that in many conditions, a large group is much more effective in solving certain problems than a so-called expert group of people. I think that making like Ron was talking about, the newsletter is a great idea in that making sure that everybody has the proper and true information to make their decisions and to be able to construct a sound decision. And I think obviously we go out to people and ask their thoughts and try to address their thoughts and incorporate their thoughts into your decision. But I think also something that would be very helpful would be something like a Saturday morning coffee with a counselor. Have once rotate that through where on Saturday mornings people could come in and have some coffee and pastry and talk about their ideas and their issues and rotating the counselors. I think we could better inform them. Thank you.
Bob, thank you. Mark?
During this time when I've been campaigning, I've been out driving around Weed. And I see a lot of people. I don't do a lot of knocking on doors, but I do see a lot of people out working in their yards. And I pulled up, introduced myself, and talked to them. And believe it or not, a lot of them said they don't feel welcomed. I assured them that wasn't the case. Some said it's too late. They had various different reasons why they weren't able to do it or did not do it. So I told them, if I'm elected, I'll come pick you up and bring you down to these meetings. Now, can I do that? I don't know. Would I do that? I would. But I think that they feel that they're not a part of some of these things. So I see that senior citizen bus sitting out there, and that might be something to do. I'll drive it. And not for votes, for nothing, but for these folks out here that feel they're not a part of this and they've lost an edge, a voice. So I told them, I'm your voice. And I think they should be on some type of committees that are with the councilors, like Bob said, sitting and talking and listening to their ideas and not blowing them off, not telling them it doesn't matter. Let them speak, let them talk, let them have a voice. And you might be real surprised. And I think put it in the paper. You don't need a little tiny article that big that there is a city council meeting. We need to let that know. Put it in a flyer. I mean, there's other ways to do it, but I will drive you there, whether I'm on this board or this council or not. I'll start driving them. Thank you.
Mark, thank you. Brian?
I watched one of our people that lives here in the city get cut off during a meeting, and that's one of the reasons I'm here. He was a fire guy, and anyway, he had the right to speak all he wanted to because he risked his life to save our homes when the fire came. And I came to the example that people have lost heart. They don't believe the people in the city that we have now will do what they want to do, and they don't want to waste their time. And I believe we have to get the information out what they're doing, and we have to let them speak and not on no 2-minute garbage. If somebody in the city has something to say, we should listen, and we should hear them. And you know what? If we don't cut them off, they may come back. But right now, they have no faith in our city. They believe their time is being wasted, and that's sad, since they live here. See, we work for the city, the people. That's what we've forgotten. When the people don't want something here and we voted in, we're going against them, aren't we? We work for the people, and we have forgotten that. That's simple. We need to let the people know what we're doing and let them know they will be heard and not cut off halfway through a sentence. That's what I think.
Brian, thank you.
Oh, and not with computers either. Half of them don't use computers. our smartphones.
Brian, thank you. Sue?
The first thing I wrote on the answer to that one was to vote. That if the people get out and vote, they have a voice when they vote. Everyone is always invited to our city council meetings. They are always on the second Thursday of every month. That doesn't change. We could put it in the paper. I think it's in the paper. I think it has to be posted. That's a law. We have a City of Weed Economic Development Committee that was pre-COVID. We were meeting monthly. And we were trying to plan, it was just local citizens that we were trying to plan activities. The chamber was there. We tried to plan economic things. We tried to plan fun things for the downtown area to get people in there. And I agree with you, not everybody uses a computer, you're right. But again, I think it goes back to the first question that we talked about, or maybe it's just on my list. How do we get people? How do we get people motivated? Bob and I recently went and spoke with a couple of people that are in charge of the neighborhood. It's called Weed Neighborhood Watch. It's a Facebook page. And we try to invite as many people in our community, because that's information for our community, to get onto that Facebook page. The administrators were on board with that. And we try to get, as much information as we can get out that we can.
Sue, thank you. Next question is about Measure M. Currently, the City of Weed has 2 measures on the November 3rd ballot. What is your stance on Measure M, the 1/4% sales tax, and why? And Bob, it's your turn to start.
Our 1/4% sales tax, I think it's important to do a real quick history of our 2016 tax. It established a library funding service that will ensure a quality library in Weed forever. It established funding for senior services such as weekly lunches and senior van for shopping and appointments, medical appointments. It's also been used by the city for such as a down payment on a new fire truck. So it's very flexible. And it's worked well for us. And I'd like to also mention that former Mayor Dave Pierce carried this to its fruition. They did a lot of work on this. What I can find about the cemetery, in 1930, the cemeteries were established and cared for a group called the Redmond Lodge. In 1972, Emma Bales and Dysart Scribner formed a cleanup modernization group after the voters defeated a measure that would make the funding through a tax. In 1982, the cemetery property was donated to the Wainema Cemetery Associations. Up to this point, everyone had taken care of their own family plot. People actually carried water out to the plot, and they took care of their own. So it was pretty rough at that time. In 1984, the Weed Lions Club funded the sprinkler system. Before this, it was totally neglected. Since then, the association has scraped by using only donated funds and TOT funds. This tax is actually designed just to be a supplement to the present efforts. Incidentally, our plot out here costs $1,000. In Mount Shasta, it costs $3,200. So what we're doing, we're providing a cemetery that is needed here. And also, I want to mention that this tax would be covered by, for every $1 contribution that the citizens make, the people passing through Weed will make a $4 contribution. And as far as the matching funds for the rec department, they'll also have access to that too. Thank you.
Okay. Bob, thank you. Mark, Measure M.
I went back and forth with this Measure M. When I was on the rec board, it was brought up, but it was just for the rec department and the 2 cemeteries. When I left the board, the next thing I know, it had to be run through the city, because it could have been a bond issue and it could have been raising property tax. So I do understand that. That's how it had to go. At this time right now, you know, my problem is that the council, whether I'm on it or not on it, they decide where that money goes. That money needs to go, a lot of it needs to go to this big building that's been put up and those cemeteries. With that, you can start new programs in here, you can have wages in here, you can put jobs around this measure here. I'm just afraid that it's going to get lost in the shuffle, and the money that is designated for this is going to go to other items within the city. It could go to the police, it could go to the fire department. And I'm not saying that it's wrong, I'm just saying that sometimes it's overlooked to where it goes. The reason they're getting it, I believe, is because there's a deficit in the budget. So we have to make it up somehow, and it comes off the citizens. And at this particular time, I'm not for that. Thank you.
Mark, thank you. Brian, Measure M.
I can't give a real good answer for this one for the simple reason I don't know where the city money went. I don't know how much money the city still has. I'm not privileged to that information. I think the people we pay a lot already. I think we pay a lot in California already. So if I don't know where the money went, how can I answer why they need more? I know we need more money for our police department. We put them off and we brought in people that are not desirable, and our police department needs to be back in full staff. If the money went for the police department, the fire department, and the road department, I would vote yes. If the money went for something else, I would not. I would like to know what happened to our money. We have truck stops and motels. Weed has a great deal of income. Where'd it go? I'd want to know what happened to it. Anybody want to tell me? Okay.
Well, as we said, this is a forum
You
and
bet.
not a debate.
So that's what I'd want to know. I'd want to know where the budget went, and if the people, we really have to pay more, or we just have to fix where our money's going.
Okay, Brian, thank you. Sue, Measure M.
As you can imagine, I agree with Measure M. The cemeteries were getting TOT money, and that's how it first started. Is TOT money meant for a cemetery? TOT money is transient occupancy tax, so it's, I like to call it rears and beds. I use another word. Should that go towards a cemetery? So that's how the conversation started. At one point, the Parks and Rec, as Mark said, looked at parcel tax, and in the parcel tax was going to be, there would have to be so much parcel tax per parcel that we knew that our citizens could not afford it. We could not afford to put $100 per parcel on in this town. We knew that we couldn't do that. So we looked into the 1/4 penny sales tax. Right now, in, what did you say, Bob, in 2016 that 1/4 penny passed? And it is designated for seniors and libraries and emergency services and roads. And since I've been on the council, it has not been spent that I know of on anything but those 4 things. Because I'm personally very adamant about, if that's what we told the voters we were going to spend the money on, that's what we'll spend the money on. So that tax, which is anywhere from $200,000 to $250,000, goes there. So this being another 1/4 penny would be the same thing. It would go towards the city. So at that point, the recreation district was starting to apply for grants. The recreation district, hopefully, it's a grant, so hopefully we'll be receiving those grants and possibly won't need to use any of this money right from the get-go. We'll have to see. The cemetery, yes, the cemetery might need to. I personally, with that money, would love to see $10,000 a year being put towards the fire department so we could get brush mitigation done around the town. We need protection around our town, as we know from the fire. We need to have that brush around the town. And I agree that some of the money needs to go to roads, but unfortunately, roads are very expensive.
Sue, thank you. Ron, Measure M.
Well, I'm opposed. I don't believe the council has been honest with the citizens. As Pelfini's letter in last week's newspaper indicated, the reason for the tax is for the Park and Rec District. It's driven not by fire, it's not driven by needs with the police or the pool. The Park and Rec District simply built a building. It's a beautiful building, but they built a building too large. They can't afford to operate it. Two of the people asking for your vote in this election were part of making that bad decision. And I understand why they're going to hide the reason for the tax, because they don't want to admit to their poor decision that they made. There's no mystery why they're going with the sales tax, because of Mount Shasta's Recreation and Parks District's inability to get a parcel tax approved. But if presented properly, that doesn't mean that Weed could not. The district is larger than the city, so it's people that are benefiting from the facilities that the district has should pay for those benefits. 60% of a parcel tax would be paid by commercial properties. Now, what the city says is 72% of the sales tax will be paid by others. That's fallacious. In 2016, I created that number by working with the economic professors at the University of California, Chico, and that was correct then, but it's not correct now. In the 4 years since then, we've had Grocery Outlet, Dollar General, Starbucks, and there's been a change in sales. And as a result, the number is now closer to 63 to 65%. So 60% versus 65. Not really a great difference, but take a look at who pays the sales tax and who pays a parcel tax. A sales tax is regressive, and so it is a bigger burden on the poor and those with fixed incomes. They've moved the money from one group to another, a group that is going to have a harder time paying that extra tax.
Ron, thank you. The next several questions will be focused on some of the current issues that we are seeing here in the city of Weed. The first is going to be about economic growth. So what type of economic growth would you like to see in the city of Weed? And Mark, we'll begin with you.
Excuse me. Well, some of the economic growth, right now everything is, because of some of the COVID issue, everything is at a standstill. But, I would like to see some of the green going up. I would like to see solar. I'd like to see wind energy, something out of the box. That wind is free, solar is free. We're going to have to go green because that's the way that things are going to and pushing for right now. So something like that we can get grants at, we can have the state and feds help us out with it. That's kind of where I see this vision going. Also, I could see putting in, like, say, call centers and distribution centers. Something that would employ a lot of people at a reasonable wages. Call centers, if you look down south, there's huge call centers and they employ sometimes 100, 200 people. Distribution, why not Amazon? I see them driving up and down the freeway all the time. I mean, there's things that are out there and you have to look for them, you have to go get them, but that's a part that I'm not on the council. So that's something I'd have to learn on how to do that, what we need to do to accomplish those, and even to get an idea how to do those. But those are some of the visions that I have, and I've had it. These are items, the first three items, I think, they're all free. Cost nothing except for the hardware to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Brian, economic growth.
That's a good question. Something to do with the lumber industry. That's what we are. We're a lumber farm town. We have beef, we have cattle, we farm, we're farmers, and we're lumber people. We always have been. people have came here and lived here their whole lives for a nice, sweet little town, and they want to stay that way. People in the city move in, decide they want to make it like where they're at, so they start making rules like there is in the city to change this town and what they moved away from. And that makes no sense to me. The furniture store, making furniture, anything of that sort would be fine with me. I was real sad to see the Hinge Company move out of Wairika and move away. We'd like to see that come back. Something in manufacturing stay around. Roseburg Lumber, I'd like to see them put more in. But with all the fires, we're gonna do a lot more logging. There's no question about it. Even our governor has to admit, we can't let the place burn up. So we're gonna have a lot more timber coming in, something of this sort. We have been a farm logging community forever, and we can stay that way. That's what I like.
Thanks, Brian.
And South Weed, of course, to get the truck stops, truck wash, anything we can over there. Maybe something that if we manufacture something, it's something we're making, furniture store, something. There's a lot out there. I don't know. I couldn't go through the list for an hour. Got to go find out who wants to come to Weed.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Sue, economic growth.
Right now, we are all waiting for Love's to open. Love's is in the middle of a lawsuit with a group that's not in the city of Weed. And so everybody's waiting for that to open because the taxes on that will be great. I would love to see another sit-down restaurant like we had with Silva's down in South Weed. We can all see that there's a problem with that. The Hilo is great, the Pizza Factory is great, but it would be nice to have something in something besides South Weed and more restaurants along the 97 Boulevard. And all those things, and Ron can attest to it, he worked hard to get things here. Those things have been out there. People look. A local person was looking for a company, they needed a railroad spur. Well, we have that, but there wasn't property available near the railroad spur for them to put their business in. So people are looking for those, are out looking. Ron spent 8 years looking for that kind of thing. It's not like it's not being done, but it's just difficult, to get somebody to, this is where you want to open your business. But we all want, everybody, I can't think of a person on the council that doesn't want that.
Sue, thank you. Ron, economic growth.
Yes, Weed needs to grow its tax base, and it needs to provide job opportunities. I've had 40 years of experience, more than 40 years of experience in economic development, and I can tell you that you need to build on your strengths. The strength of Weed is South Weed. There's a reason why I opposed a large commercial growth that recently was approved by the council. In 2018, I had 3 meetings with Tractor Supply that had plans to build immediately adjacent to Grocery Outlet, wanted to come to Weed, and couldn't buy the land because Racetrack had it under an option. Using commercial property that has a traffic pattern that Grocery Outlet provides to the city for industrial uses is crazy. If they moved that facility 1 block south, I wouldn't have opposed it. But there's a reason why the developer wanted to have it there, because the city's codes require that if you build out in the middle of nowhere, you have to bring the water lines, the sewer lines, all the mains, the roads up to par, and it's at your cost. So it was in the developer's best interest to be next to Grocery Outlet because all that stuff is already there, but it's not in the best interest of the city. If the city council had a little understanding of these issues, they could have helped the developer. They could have delayed when the road had to go in. If jobs actually materialize, they can get CDBG funds to put in the water and sewer lines. They can delay things to help them. But they didn't have the knowledge base to make the right decisions. South Weed is on the verge of becoming the shopping center for the entire South County.
When Love's goes in, there will be 2 to 3 new businesses here. They're waiting, as Sue says, for Love's to break ground before they announce their plans. Don't blow it by taking your best commercial property in the city and put it to non-commercial uses, guys. It's just the wrong thing to do.
Thank you, Ron. Bob, economic growth.
Thank you. I think the first thing we should realize is that what most of the Love-type jobs are going to be low wage, minimum wage. Most of these jobs are. The lumber industry we've changed. It's very difficult to bring back the lumber industry. But I've said before, I think the most important thing is to bring industry in. How you bring industry in is you create a labor force. The community takes the responsibility for their labor force. We start developing it by having community buy-in to understand that we start in our schools. We start raising the bar. We support the school boards. We become responsible for the school system. Just because you don't have kids in school doesn't mean you're not responsible for that system. And as far as the back to the livable wage jobs, if we're going to have a community that actually is going to be able to support itself, we have to bring in some industry. And I believe as soon as we start talking about creating a labor force, we're going to get notoriety right there. Because people aren't doing that. A labor force is just something that just happens. We can build it. We're small enough to build it. We can do this. And I do believe if we build this labor force, industry will come. I believe it wholeheartedly. But it is about community buy-in. But it's going to be about community leadership too. Not pulling and tugging on one another, not pointing the finger. It's about pulling together. Anybody can tear apart. Anybody can do that. Pulling together, something special. And we already have the basis in our community for that. So it's there. We just need to try it. Thank you.
Bob, thank you. Next issue is housing. The city has a mid-level housing crisis. What does this mean to you, and what forms of support are achievable to remedy via city government? Brian?
I don't, since I'm not on the city government yet, I don't know what small loans are out there. It's supply and demand. As people want to come to Weed, they'll build a home. There's lots out here that got burned up in the fire. I don't know how many lots we have open, but quite a few. They need to be filled back up with houses. If there is a low interest loan, we can get people to build a house. Great Northern, I think is great. We have it already. I don't know how many people have applied for it. I don't know how many people have gone through the farmer's loan, home loan, to get them. It's the same thing. I have no idea. But we have lots to build homes on. People just have to want to do it. If we bring people in that kind of, how can I put that in a different way? We need to figure out what finance is available for people to build homes on the lot that burned up, that didn't get replaced, and what lots we have, and fill them up, and make our neighborhoods back to what they were.
Brian, thank you. Sue, housing.
Having just rebuilt a house, sadly, there's part of the reason houses aren't getting built in Weed is no fault of anybody in this room. To build a house in California has become so expensive that people aren't doing it. They're not doing it anywhere. You have to have solar, you have to have, and all this comes down from the state government. You have to have solar, you have to have sprinklers, you have to do all these things that makes it so expensive to build a house. Even if you wanted to build a rental house, you couldn't build a rental house in the city of Weed and be able to expect to rent it for the price that you would need to get as what it's going to cost you to build it. The city has applied, and we've had word that we have received the CDBG, the block grant for home improvements for our constituents here in the city. I think the city could possibly do, there was a little bit of a conversation that I was involved in, that the city could possibly do a little bit with our own codes. Right now, our codes require that there be a garage. Well, a garage could cost you anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000. That could put somebody over their price range. Maybe if we just required a carport, but you have to have parking off the street versus a complete garage. I don't know, that would be something that would need to be brought up in a conversation that's larger than just me and the other two people. But I think there's a few things that we can do about it, but I think unfortunately, a lot of the problems could stem from Sacramento.
Sue, thank you. Ron? Housing.
Every community in Siskiyou County has housing issues. They may differ from community to community, but we all have them. In Weed, we lack workforce housing, workforce rentals. I'm not talking about low-income rentals, I'm talking about rentals for the rest of us. We lack first-time homeowners options, such as townhomes that might be a little less expensive than a standalone stick home. I've tried over the years, I've met with developers in Chico, in Davis, in Medford. We don't have any local developers. And I've asked them, I pleaded with them to come to Weed and build housing. And they told me it didn't make any sense. They said they understood that the land would cost them less, but the building materials would be about the same, and their workforce was in Chico or Davis. And if they moved that workforce here to do a major project, they'd have to pay extra money to them for living away from home. So they said by the time we get it done, we'll have about the same amount of money into that rental project as we would if we had it in Chico, but I can't get the rents in Weed that I can get in Chico. So it doesn't make sense for me to do it. I went to two nonprofits, one in Chico, one in Ukiah, and I pleaded with them to come here, and without incentives, they said they wouldn't do it. Opportunities exist under state law for the voters to approve bonds that can provide incentives, can even fund projects. Those opportunities are used by bigger cities, not by little cities like Weed. There's a cost to doing those sort of bonds, and that is you have to have a bond counsel, you have to have a bond underwriter, you have to have either a bond rating or you have to insure the project, the financing, and there's a cost to that, and it gets the cost too high for a little project for a city like Weed. But I encourage the creation of a Siskiyou County Housing Authority that can bring to the voters in 2022 a proposal that can create the kind of incentives that can help every community in our county deal with the housing needs that we have.
Ron, thank you. Bob? Housing.
Housing, on different aspects to it. Level of income has a lot to do with it. Back to livable wage, I can always bring that up. But California has 12% of the nation's population. We also have 22% of the nation's homeless population. So we do have an issue here. We need affordable housing for homeless, but we also need it for our working poor, which we have many working poor in our community that live in the city limits, let's put it that way. I've been a member of the Siskiyou Homeless Coalition for the past 3 years. We've done studies in counts of the homeless people and actually created a couple of little programs to assist there. But to address a crisis, as Ron was talking about, is very difficult. We need all the players and stakeholders at the table at one time. We need the developers, the financial community, residents, business owners, and representatives from city, county, and state government to work together, sit down and find a way to do this. It's going to take innovation and creativity. We all know the problem. Nobody's come up with the answer yet. But we can if we pull everybody together and we work together. A real solution must involve everyone. There are block grants and et cetera that can help out. We can possibly establish affordable housing districts. It allows districts to provide financial assistance in the forms of loans, grants, and other incentive to develop affordable housing. There are also other things such as opportunity zones, which actually allow people, investors, to come in and be able to finance, and with tax incentives, they're able to recoup their money and invest in things that or in communities they believe that are practical. And but the main thing is that we're going to have to bring people together. There is no silver bullet here, but I do believe that back to the livable wage is very important regarding this, as far as being able to own a home, purchase a home, build a home. Thank you.
Bob, thank you. Mark? Housing.
I agree with just about everybody on here on certain parts of it. You know, the only things I can add on that are, you know, offer tax breaks, maybe relax some of the zonings for these developers and offer them incentives and tax breaks to be and want to be part of this solution. The nonprofit builders, they usually work with the state, county, and officials. So it's things like that that I think that we need to try to push for and work for. And that's about all I have on that. Thank you.
Mark, thank you.
You're welcome.
Another issue is downtown. So,
Did
well,
he skip you? Did he skip you on that, or you started on that, Brian?
Oh, me? Go ahead.
Did he start on that one?
yes.
Oh, okay.
I
It's
was
me.
not, I thought.
Been trying to
Sorry.
keep track. That's okay. So Sue, we're going to start with you.
Okay, I'm ready.
Okay. So another issue for the city of Weed is downtown. While many efforts are concentrating on reviving the downtown as a desirable destination, Main Street's decline continues seemingly unabated. What would you recommend getting Main Street, downtown Weed, on a more positive track?
Thank you for asking that question. Because if you recall in my first one, that was one of the first things that I wanted done when I got elected. I have to drive down Main Street to get home. So I get the joy of looking at that on a daily basis. I often think that the road might tilt to one side because of all the businesses that are on one and all the other side that has no businesses. So it's a slow process. Some of the buildings are owned by people that live right here in town that have to drive by them too, and apparently they don't bother them. Some of them are owned by people from out of the area that don't seem to be able to care what they look like either. And the city is in the process, it's a slow process, of trying to fix that. Some of the efforts that we've been making, last Saturday, the Rotary Club had a cleanup, and we cleaned up and down Main Street, and we cleaned up and down North Weed Boulevard. That always helps, you know, just getting the garbage and the trees that are growing in the cracks and the dirt out of there, it helps. But again, there's lawyers involved, so the city is in the process of trying to get that fixed. The downtown area that's so horrendous.
Sue, thank you. Ron, Main Street, downtown Weed.
Yes, I've helped two cities rebuild their downtown business district. And in one of the cities, Lamar, Colorado, in 2010, we received the Governor's Award for the best economic development program in the state of Colorado for downtown redevelopment. In the 8 years that I worked for the city, I gave them two recommendations. The first was to use receivership for the purpose of bringing the buildings up to code. It took 7 years, but I finally got their attention and they're moving on it. The second issue that I gave them, they have not started moving on. It takes a unique kind of business to be successful as the first or the second major business in an area that's being restored basically from scratch. And what you need to concentrate on is food and entertainment. Five Marys and Denny's Bar prove my point that if people will go out of the way to go to a good restaurant, if you have entertainment, you have a band that people like and they follow, they'll go out of their way to go see the band because they enjoy that particular music or that particular group. Both of those require a commercial kitchen and a bar operation. Not having commercial kitchen and bar, just having a head tax for entertainment, well, our movie theater proved that just that alone as an income stream was not sufficient. Both of these require a commercial kitchen, and none of the buildings in downtown Weed have a commercial kitchen. Black Butte did, it was torn out, and all the equipment was sold. It's really expensive to put a commercial kitchen into a piece of property. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars. For a business to take that kind of risk, they need an incentive to do it. And up till now, despite 8 years of trying, the city has not been willing to provide that financial incentive to get that first or second business downtown. If I'm on the council, I will push for that.
Ron, thank you. Bob, downtown Weed, Main Street.
Well, that's already been said regarding the area. I put a lot of time, personal time, into the working with volunteers to redo the sidewalks and streetlights and things like that. Those are things that we started a long time ago. But I think it's real important to understand that the city is moving forward. I think if you drive through the city, you drive through Main Street, you can see the difference between now and say 9 months, a year ago, when people were hanging out in what the Black Butte was creating, this element that was on our streets at all times. We've improved on that. As far as the buildings themselves, we are in the process of getting them into a receivership, which Ron suggested a long time ago. But here again, that takes time. You just don't go out and take private property from people. People have a right to do what they want to do with their property up to a point. And then when you challenge that, it takes time to change that. But I do believe that we are in the process of coming to a point where these buildings very possibly could be restored. We have a company out of the Bay Area that believes that they can take this property into receivership and restore the buildings, bring it up to code, and recoup their money when they sell it. And once we do that, I think it's just the beginning. And obviously, through the chamber thing in groups, we need to be able to understand that we need complementary businesses. You know, we don't just need one business. We need complementary businesses. Where somebody goes down to get a haircut, they stop by and buy something, for their grandmother or different things. We don't need just one store. We don't need one major thing down there. We need complementary businesses and understanding that the city's never going to be what it was when we all just went down to Jack's Wish store and you got everything right there that they had. We need different complementary businesses that not only will we use, but the people passing through. Right now, we have so much traffic coming through. People walk down the street every day, say, oh, that's an interesting little town. As they go through, they find, well, there's nothing here. There's nothing here. But I think if we continue what we're going, at the pace we're going right now, we're going to do it right. So I'm not one that I believe that downtown has a great future yet. Thank you.
Bob, thank you. Mark, Main Street, downtown Weed.
First, I want to commend Bob and Sue. I mean, I see the work that's been going on down there. I see Sue with chain gang down there, and they're cleaning up, and that's appreciated, but I look at Weed, and something that Bob mentioned, it's not going to be the same, that downtown, as when we were kids. You had a Western Auto, you had the furniture store. I mean, we were self-efficient, I'm sorry, and I don't want to see this, but I think some of those days are gone. I kind of envision it that being a part of the city, working there, I saw the vision was the south end. That's where everything was going to be. I kind of thought, talking to some of the leaders at that time, that this downtown area would also be for business spots for these businesses. They would have a headquarters downtown, which would also get eateries and small things like that. And that's kind of where I'm envisioning it to be. You definitely need some restaurants, and I agree with Ron on that. You do need restaurants down there. You need something else. Is it going to be like it was before? I'm afraid it isn't. But it's not hopeless. It's not that we can't put things in and get some desirable things in here. And again, that's something that the citizens could all be involved in, and surrounding committees or whatnot. And your owners that are not around, and they're out-of-town owners, they need to be held responsible for their buildings, on however you had to do it. When I worked for the city and I did community service, we had one apartment whole, 272 North Weed. It was taken down. The folks in that place were removed because they were not living like they should. They were being treated totally unfair. That owner of that place had to relocate those people and find new homes for them and places until they got on there. That place has now been knocked down and destroyed. I was a part of that. We used the county and other agencies in there. It finally was destroyed and knocked down. So anything is possible. So that's what I think we do. We need to use the laws and our muni codes, but also I think that we have to have a different type of vision, a second vision, not to maybe do something else.
Mark, thank you. Brian, Main Street, downtown Weed.
It would have to be something that the local people would want to use. It would have to be something that the local people wanted to come buy something there. Right now, when they want to go shopping, they drive to Medford and go to Red Lobster and go to the big stores and the malls and everything else. So whatever we put there would have to be something that brought our own people in, because during the wintertime, of course, we don't have the tourists coming through, and that's what kills the small business in Weed, is when there's no people on the street. I'd like to see a steakhouse. I think the Black Butte Bar is unbelievable, that old oak bar. I'd like to see it opened up again. You ever seen that commercial, somebody slides the beer down it? I think that would be neat. As for the guy that owns it, the Happy Company, I don't believe he'll ever do anything with it. I don't believe he has the money to, but I don't believe the city has the right to take it from him either. He owns it. You can make him fix the building. You can make him make the building safe, but you can't take somebody else's property away from him. You just can't do it. We live in America. That man owns it. As much as we don't like what he's doing with it, it's his. So as long as it's safe and he takes care of any health problems with it, no, we don't. City should not put a bunch of money trying to take it away from him. It's that simple. He's going to have to either develop or sell it. And I would like to see a nice restaurant, maybe another furniture store. Jewelry store would be neat. Mount Shasta's losing theirs, so maybe they might want to come to Weed.
Brian, thank you.
You bet.
This next question, Ron, will be starting with you. The city of Weed is facing financial stress, and because of COVID-19, they have been forced to implement furloughs, hiring freezes, and spending freezes. If elected, what 3 steps would you take to put our city on a firmer financial footing?
Some of our people are hurting. They've had hours cut. They've lost jobs. They're trying to get by on unemployment. The one thing I wouldn't do is raise taxes. I'm really impressed with the leadership that the council had in 2008. And I'm not bragging about myself or about the council that I led. I didn't get hired until
2012. But during the recession of 2008, we had a similar situation in that we had revenues that were reduced. But the city council didn't try to balance the budget on the expense of the staff. They didn't force people to take furloughs. They did do hiring freezes, but they didn't lay anybody off, as this council has done. What they did was they tightened their belts. They reduced expenditures. They delayed capital improvements. They didn't take on new projects until the revenue stream returned. That's what this council needs to do. But I will tell you that the doom and gloom scenarios that I've heard about in the newspaper don't really appear to be the fact. June, our numbers were up. I'm going to take that back. May, our numbers were up. July, our numbers were up. June, our numbers were down quite substantially. August, our numbers were down. But the director of the chamber went to the October meeting of the council and said that every campground in the area was full. He said that every motel room was full. TOT tax is not going to be down. Sales tax for at least those 2 months, June and August, are down. But is that a trend? Is that really what we're going to expect to see for the next 6 to 8 months? Although they're using it as the basis to tell you there's a need for a sales tax increase, I don't think they have sufficient evidence to show that. Yes, they were down in June, not $260,000 worth over a year. And the August numbers were down slightly because of fires. So we had COVID in June and fires in August. And we're probably in for some pretty harsh months coming up here for the next 2 or 3 with COVID numbers stabilizing in California, but will they be stabilized? They went up after Memorial Day. They went up after the 4th of July. They didn't go up after Labor Day. So maybe we've learned something, and maybe we won't see significant down, but we might. And if we do, there's a way to rectify that by simply tightening the belt.
Ron, thank you. Bob, 3 steps to put our city on firmer financial footing.
Is this a different question?
No, that was the question. That was the end of that question.
Well, that we were asking the financial stress on the city, COVID.
Yeah, the city
To the
is
furloughs and
facing
hiring
financial
freezes.
stress and furloughs, and
Yeah.
if elected, what 3 steps would you take to put our city on a firmer financial footing?
Well, first of all, I think it's real important to understand that, this COVID, it's just beginning. So we don't really know what's going to happen. We have to be prepared for it. I think the first step is, what I would do is I encourage all the employees to be part of the solution. Working on projects, spending money as if it was yours, not just spending it like there's no end to the resource. To understand that we have to every nickels and dimes is what will save money. Looking for the dollars. Looking for the dollars isn't always the answer. Nickels and dimes, they add up. I wanted to briefly say this. In 1990, I was working for J.H. Baxter. The company came to us and asked for $1.75 an hour. Now, this is the real world. This isn't city. This is real world. I'm from the real world. They asked for a $1.75 cut an hour, which was significant. It was like a 10% cut. And the union, we wrestled with it, but we came to terms with the understanding that it was necessary for this company It was necessary for them to survive. We needed to take this cut. And without it, the jobs could possibly evaporate. So the company we did this, and the company stayed in business in weed for another 18 years because we became part of the solution. So there are things that can be done, but I think the idea that we're going to set the employees up and they're the last to be affected, I think it's ridiculous. I think the real world is here. I think we all have to pull together to pull this off and hopefully make up for it when we are flush, but understand we're going through a time that we don't know what's going to happen. We just don't know. And the employees are part of the solution. When I first came on this council, it was said that, we didn't have to lay anybody off. That's true, as Ron's talking about. But there wasn't anything being done in the city. Downtown was a wreck. Wires sticking out of light poles have been broken off. There was nothing was being done. But we still had the same amount of people. Nobody got laid off. That's true. I'm from the real world. I think it's time that we take a look at it. And if we hold together, we're going to be okay. The employees are going to be okay. But we need to hold together. Not be set up on a pedestal. Thank you.
Bob, thank you. Mark, 3 steps to take to put our city on a firmer financial footing.
Well, I can tell you the city took 3 steps. They had furloughs, hiring freeze, and spending freeze. That's the steps. The employees took the hits on it. My question I have for everybody up here is, where was the surplus at? Where was the budget? So what was in the budget? I mean, I just want to know. I don't understand that. You're always told you're little, put them up for a rainy day, put this away, put that away. So did it continue on? And I don't buy the COVID as far as it is a epidemic. But that isn't the reason why they were all laid off or this freeze was on. Is because I believe the money was very, very low at that point, and there wasn't any reserve in it. COVID happened after that, after everybody was laid off, and that's true. And don't get me wrong, the COVID is a real thing. It's obvious. But the question here was the financial stress of the COVID. Grocery stores made a lot of money during this unfortunate thing. I think the revenue, the gas went down because we make more money off that gas fund when the gas prices are up. I notice now that the gas prices are back up again. The housing, or I should say the motels, I think they took a hit too. Solano's, I think they made money during this. I don't think it was all the worst thing. We're fortunate because we're from a smaller community, and we don't have the big outbreaks. And we are doing what we're doing tonight. We're distancing, and that's a big factor. So again, I will ask, where did the money go? Who okayed this budget, and why was there not any money left in that budget or below that line where they had to do these breaks? That's all I'm saying. That's what I want to know. I'll go back again, budget. Thank you.
Mark, thank you. Brian, 3 steps to put our city on a firmer financial footing.
I agree with him. Find out where the money went. Our truck stop did a record amount. That truck stop's been so busy, it's not even funny. Hardware store, talk to them. They've been knocking them dead. They've had a ball. Our motels took a beating. Our restaurant did for a while. I didn't. I lost a certain amount and not enough I couldn't absorb, and I am a business here in town. I don't know where the money went. How much did we spend on city council meetings for cannabis? What was this thing we paid so much money to have weed's name put on a cannabis label? What was that? Where'd our money go to? We put stuff in the city that we could not afford, and we need to fix it. It's not up to the people to pay more money. It's for us to fix where our money went and stop it from going there. So yes, I would want to find out where the money went, and I would not want to cut our employees. I don't believe the police department's overpaid. I definitely don't believe our city workers are overpaid, by no means. Some of them make a lot less than my tow truck drivers, and let me tell you something, somebody tried to run one of your officers over the truck the other day. I believe he's not making what he should. People don't understand at 3 o'clock in the morning, you're not out there, you're in bed, that what our PD and our people do, our public works do when they're plowing snow, what our PD does when they're driving around, how much protection they give us. They got a guy in the high-low motel at 2 o'clock this morning. I had the privilege of towing the truck to my yard, and what he was up to was really not a good thing. And the truck was stolen, and it was gone, and you had one officer on. So thank goodness the Highway Patrol sent 3 more in there, and everything went really well. We have a wonderful police force, and we take the money away from them. We're in trouble. It's going to get worse around here. We brought an industry into this area. I don't know, we did, the county did, whoever did, state, that is bringing crime with it, and our police force cannot be cut. Our fire departments need to be where they're at. I mean, look at all the fires. And our public works needs to keep doing what they're doing. We do not cut their wages. We do not furlough them. We find out where the money went, and we find a way to get it back. And we give it back to the people. That's my answer.
Brian, thank you. Sue, 3 steps to put our city on a firmer financial footing.
I want to answer a question that both of you have asked when I got on the city council 4 years ago. The water issue, and I have to say that I agreed with the people that were working on it, that we'd owned the water, but then I also have to agree that there was nothing that was going to happen that was to prove that they could. It's 2016 and we have lawyers. And at that point, the city had spent $400,000 on lawyers. And that was one of the first things that I said, we have got to stop the bleeding of this money going to lawyers for this water, let's fix it. I think the last time I checked was 2 months ago, the city had spent, I think, $800,000 now on lawyers to get the water. That does not make me happy at all whatsoever. There's where part of the money went. I signed checks. I was signing checks that I did not agree with what the money was being spent on. But it was spent, and it was water on the bridge, and it wasn't a ginormous amount. Our financial problem in the city is not it is not from COVID. It is partially from COVID because gas taxes were down. People weren't moving there for the 6 or 8 weeks. People weren't moving around, so gas taxes were down. Obviously, hotel taxes were down. But the problem that we had and why we had to put everybody on furlough, and I would like to say that the city council also took a 10% cut, but that was from bad past practices, is the reason that everybody was put on furlough. So now that we've established that, our fire department was working on very diligently to make extra money on these fires. They've had an agreement with May 10 Fire Department, so we could get paid some extra money. That has been implemented. We have been researching grant opportunities, and then Measure M. And Measure M is not going to be the savior, but it's going to help. At this point, I don't know if the question is on here, if we've already answered it, but our water problem is in the process of being fixed. But yeah, so we've got the fire department working on things, we have grant opportunities, and I would like for people to vote yes on Measure M, because it will, if I'm reelected, I will make sure that it goes to the businesses, the projects that it was said it would go to. And the recreation center is not a priority. They would have to apply for that. And I'd also like to add that we did have two businesses, one business in downtown that did not open because she was planning on opening in April and did not open because of COVID. It was a restaurant. Can't blame her. And then another store that's a little dress shop that has not been able to open just because she couldn't open and blah, blah, blah. So there
So-
are things down there that haven't opened.
Thank you. This concludes the time we set for the forum. First of all, I'd like everyone in attendance to show a sign of support to all of these candidates. It takes a lot of bravery to put your name out there to serve the public. So let's give a round of applause for all of our candidates. Here you go. And thank you very much, Richard, to close us.
Thank you, candidates. It was a pleasure listening to all these answers. It took quite a bit coming up with all these questions, believe me. But hopefully, with you in the audience and all the voters out there, this has given you a little bit of insight to make a vote. And we want to thank you for being here, especially those out there in our audience and on TV and our websites and Facebook pages. So thank you all for coming and being so polite. This has been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Is that it?
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you.
Didn't hurt too bad.